Hi, this is Jessica Gibson from the Huron Historical Society and the Huron Public Library. Today is April 10th, 2009, and I will be interviewing Marian Hancy for the Huron Oral History Project. Hi, Marian. Can you tell me where you grew up?
I grew up mostly in Huron. When my parents first moved here, I was starting 4th grade, and we rented for about 3 years the building that was called the schoolhouse across from Bruns's farm out on Route 6. And that's kind of where I grew up until we moved into town.
Can you tell me where your parents were from, where you came from? Because you said you moved in the 4th grade.
Right. I was born in Lima, Ohio.
Okay.
My parents are originally from Michigan and Illinois.
Do you know why you moved to Huron?
My father changed jobs.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was his original job and what did he change to?
He had his own company in Lima, Ohio, and decided that wasn't working out for what he wanted to, and he came here and he went into work for a while with Ernie Waller with the neon sign business, and then he became a salaried person at Ford Motor Company, and that's in their laboratories, and that's what was his main field of interest was science, so that's where he ended up working.
And he enjoyed that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Did your mother do anything?
Yes, my mother was a registered nurse and
Oh.
loved nursing, especially surgical nursing, so I was very proud of my mom.
She was also from Lima?
Originally from Chicago, Illinois.
Okay. Do you know how she came to come, or how she came to be in Ohio?
She met my dad in nurses training, which was in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and they married, and then his job took him to Lima, so that's the journey, right.
Wow, that's quite a journey. Can you tell me what it was like growing up near Sawmill?
It was terrific. Knowing that I was coming in for this interview, I was thinking how I really didn't realize how lucky I was as a young girl, 11, 12, 13, to be growing up there with such freedom. We had access to the beach and walking down to the beach and through the lanes, and we picked potatoes and earned a lot of money. The Brunses sold eggs and things out of their back porch there on the farm, and Mrs. Bruns, Kenny's mother, the younger Mrs. Bruns, I think she was a little bit lonely, and so she wanted a girl around to talk to, because the elder Mrs. Bruns didn't speak to very many people that I was aware of. And there was a summer kitchen off the main kitchen, and that's where she cooked. She cooked on this wood stove her entire life. In the heat of the summer, everything was cooked in that back kitchen. These great pies and all that. And the younger Mrs. Bruns would just kind of, but she just wouldn't give it up. And that stove, as a matter of fact, is on display up in the Sawmill Creek shops today, up where the dishes are on display. Her stove is up there, her stove and oven. So you might think about that if you shop up there sometime.
Well, that's very interesting.
And I think about that, and I also think about that was the hayloft. I fell out of that hayloft so many times and began the series of back injuries. But it was a great place to grow up. A lot of freedom, discovery. Well, I had not been around a farm, so that was fun. And the schoolhouse where I lived, we had 14-inch brick thick walls, and a friend of mine who collects postcards found the picture of that schoolhouse, and I don't have the picture of that, with a steeple on the top. So at one time there was a steeple with the bell, the school bell up there ringing, and so it has quite a history on its own. We had a coal furnace, and every time I see the Christmas Story, I think of my father. He could have played the role of the father in the clinkers in the coal furnace several times, but it was fun. And Bose Road, where that house is, at that time went all the way through. There was no bypass, so we could ride bikes and go for quite a distance up that way.
So you could really wander.
Yeah,
that's very excellent. Can you tell me what it was mostly? What was Sawmill Creek mostly?
We never called it Sawmill Creek. That
Okay.
became the name of the buyers who developed it after the Brunses. Their 2 Bruns boys did not want to go on with farming. If they had, it would have been 3 generations on that farm. But Mr. Bruns passed away, and Mrs. Bruns sold the property and built another home on the lake down towards Huron. So I didn't call it Sawmill Creek. We used the hills to go sledding on in the wintertime and skate on the creek. We would skate on the creek practically the whole day and go way south. And I can remember creeping underneath the bridges because the ice was so thin that we didn't want to fall through, but spent a lot of time there.
Did you happen to go to the Huron Schools?
Yes, I did.
You did?
Mm-hmm.
How did you get there?
By bus.
You had buses? Okay.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy that?
Sure.
Were there some favorite childhood memories that you have from Sawmill and the schools?
On the school system?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, my class, there were 58, I graduated in 1958. There were 58 students in the class of 58, and we're still very, very close together. Lots of good friends, lots of memories. My class was the last class to graduate from McCormick School before they built the new high school. So we just had our 50th class reunion, and so that building is 50 years old, and I keep thinking of it as the new school, but it really isn't. So we had lots of good times, lots of fun, practical jokes with our teachers, and stories that we like to tell about that. Mm-hmm.
Can you give me an example of practical jokes on your teachers? Can you tell me about that?
Since they're no longer with us. I still have a teacher who's still living, by the way, which Dick Klein is very active, and his wife in town. He's amazing to all of us. But Mr. Hartley was our principal at the time, and we had a brand new refrigerator with a freezer at the top, which was dazzling. It made automatic ice cubes. And we just became enamored with the automatic ice cube maker. So we would all kind of shove the box over so that it kept making ice cubes, and Miss Chandler would open up the freezer and all these ice cubes would pour out. But one day, I have no clue why, we were on the honor system because she was not going to be there. And we had these chandelier lights that came down with the big base around it. And one of us, I did not do this, put an ice cube up in the chandelier for whatever reason, I don't know. And Mr. Hartley came to check on us. And we've thought about this for a long time too. He could have stood there and there, but no, he stood right directly underneath the chandelier with the ice cube, drip, and he watched it go down his face. He said, "Up to study hall, all of you, now." So we got caught with our ice cubes. Poor Mr. Hartley.
Do you have, can you tell me why you stayed in the area? You're still living in Huron, correct?
I do. I live outside of town now. My parents moved away from Huron when I was a junior in college. And I then lived in the Berea area for a while, but I just had to come back to the water, so I came back to Huron so I could be near the water. That's why I'm still here, as a matter of fact.
So the water's a big factor
Absolutely.
in everything. Can you tell me why that is?
I don't know. I think for a lot of people, we feel a sense of calmness and serenity being around the water. And of course, I happen to have the good fortune of living on the lake, and there are some times when I just want to say, stop, because it's too rough and the waves and the wind won't quit. But it's every day, it's another portrait out there of the lake, and I love to watch it and be part of it. It's a great asset, I think, to our community.
What did you think of the work in the Renewal? What do you think of that?
Probably you don't want to hear what I think of that. It's one of the saddest things, and I think for all of us here in Huron who were here with a Main Street. And I often joke around that Norman Rockwell would have loved Huron in the late 50s. It was a fun place to be, a safe place for young people, and the young people today don't have anything like that. And we had a hardware store that had these terrific aromas in it when you went in because of all the bins with the nails and the screws and the nuts and the bolts. And I can remember crossing the street down there by the hardware store. There was another bar. There were several bars that all had high windows, and we could never see what was going on. But then we would walk past Wechter's, and Wechter's had their dairy farm there, so there would be cows there and mooing. You'd hear mooing all across Main Street. And when I tell that story to my own children, they think Mother's gone a little off the deep end because they don't believe that there were cows, but there were in Freeze Lumberyard. And we had the Ritz movie theater. When we moved into town, you know where the Victorian tea room is now? It used to be a gas station and a real estate place and all that kind of stuff. It had a big sign, new modern theater to be built here. Of course, it was never built. And I can't think of the people who owned this movie theater, but they were very elderly, and we would buy our ticket. She would give us our ticket and watch us. And then we walked around, and he would take our ticket. He would just take it back. So they just kept recycling these tickets around and around. Sometimes the tickets were quite mangy when we finally got them around. There were no restrooms, so we had to leave the theater to go across the street to the restroom that was in front of the city hall, which was unfortunately and sadly also taken down. So they were fun memories there.
So you did not like the urban renewal at all?
No, not at all. No, and the sad thing is, and I would jokingly say, what was left after urban renewal came down here? The bank. It didn't get moved. That was it. And we still have to make this awful S-curve. And I'm sorry, I tend to be a little sarcastic here and there, but we have these beautiful signs on the outside. When you come into town, it says business district. There is no business. I like to put an oxymoron sign at the back of the bottom of it because that's sad and it's hard, and especially now in this time and age, to not be able to attract businesses to come downtown to Huron. It's hard. We just don't have it.
You mentioned that one of the two buildings, weren't there two buildings that were left? I had read that the funeral home was another one.
Oh, yes, that was there
Okay.
originally, right. I tend to forget about the funeral home, right. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it's probably one you almost want to, just because how sad
It's
it
still
is.
there,
But
yeah.
has that building at all changed?
That funeral building, oh
Yeah.
yes. I mean, they've cleaned up the outside and sided it, and it's very nice and crisp looking now, yeah.
Okay.
But I had a classmate whose father was Ray Dirks, who owned a jewelry store in town. And he was the last merchant. He gave up. He just gave up. And Karen, his daughter, would say she really felt that urban renewal and taking away all of his business was what caused his death. He was heartbroken to give up that business and the town. Yeah, it's hard on a lot of people.
Can you tell me what you think Huron will be in the future?
I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball to look at that. I'm very interested to see what they're going to do with the ConAgra property over there. It would be lovely if Huron had some people by the name of Ernsthausen who lived in Huron and would give us money to develop that area over there. It's prime. I think it would be lovely to have it as a recreational center for the community somehow. I have a feeling that's not what's going to happen because they probably want to bring in money and business, but I don't know where that's going to go. I have hopes that it will bring in good things for Huron.
So you hope to see good changes
I
happen
do.
in Vermont,
Oh,
as
sure.
opposed to
Right.
money changes.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you tell me what you think that, as in right now, what is Huron's greatest asset? What's its strength?
Oh, it has to be its
City.
lakefront. It has to be. We have a beautiful park system, beaches. The river, my husband was a painter, and we researched the Milan Canal that was there in around 1847. We researched that for about 2 years to find that there were at times huge schooners that came down this river all the way to Milan. And to drive across the river now and pretend to see those schooners, that's a good fantasy of mine to see that. So I think the river is an asset for boating and just to be there. It's a calming effect. I'm sorry we lost our restaurants on the river. That was a heartbreaker, both the Showboat and the Twine House. It's a nice town. It's just that, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of things to do in the town. I think they're trying very hard to develop summer activities for people at the boat basin. Don't ask me how I feel. I have a love-hate relationship with that boat basin. I think it's a beautiful thing. I love the way it's designed for the seating. But again, we can't use it year-round, and only a select few who own boats really can use that harbor. So I don't know. It's all right.
It's all right, okay.
It's all right.
I'm going to kind of backtrack, if it's all right with you. You mentioned picking potatoes on Sawmill. Can you tell me if that was a common crop? How did that come? Do you know how that happened to be?
They grew a lot of potatoes over there,
Okay.
and tomatoes as well. But they also had a big farm, dairy farm, cows and.
Okay, so there was a dairy farm out there too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Very busy working farm, very nice, prosperous farm. Oh, and I wanted to tell you one more thing. If you go past the farmhouse there, the Bruns farm, the room that's up front on the gables out front was a room set aside solely for this huge model train set. That was fantastic, the kind with the little cows that go in and out of the the cargo trains. And I've often wondered what happened to that big model train set. It was wonderful.
So you've been to see it often, or?
Well, I haven't been there since they
okay.
sold it off, and now I don't even know what's in their offices and stuff, I think. But I think what they did with the barns to reestablish them and keep them as the store. I think it's beautifully done, very well done. It's just hard to give up things, you know.
Yeah, this is true. Is there anything else that you wish to share with me?
I can't think of anything right now. It was a great place to grow up. I'm proud of Huron, and I would like more people to discover Huron, I guess, in a way, but in the other way, I'm very nervous about the urban growth that's coming and encroaching. I worry about our infrastructure not being able to handle this. When I was a girl, we took the Lake Road into Cleveland, and there were so many stoplights and everything else to get into the city. And now it is kind of wonderful because I go back and forth into Cleveland frequently, and there's not a stoplight. I can get home, but on the other hand, it also brings people here to live here. And I'm not that I'm unfriendly. I'm not. I just worry a lot about our infrastructure a great deal. But they'll figure it out somehow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me here. Yeah, I enjoyed it.